This is an edited reading from Chapter 5, the first part of Chapter 5 on integration from this book, Paradoxical Wisdom, Just Be Kind. Again, the ultimate resolution of a paradox remains a paradox. Its solutions can never be reduced to a simple, static, permanent, either-or, extremist, singular, and linear truth. Thus, enlightenment doesn't mean that we permanently transcend our congress of part-selves and become transformed into wholly purified and fully realized beings, as some falsely claim. This amounts to yet another utopian illusion. The uncanny and uncompromising inner congress remains an uncanny and uncompromising inner congress. Paradox remains paradox. The best we can manage is an ever-imperfect, humble, dynamic, forgiving, and uneasy truce, balance, cooperation, collaboration, reverberation, and coordination between our disparate parts and amidst a non-deified, imponderable, and unpredictable universe that doesn't care in the least about our personal, naive, and idealistic notions. This is the essential, compromised, tentative, and messy nature of integration. It may well be awkward, cumbersome, challenging, delaying, limiting, aggravating, and even maddening at times, but it's also gloriously and ultimately enriching, expansive, authentic, intimate, pleasurable, and beautiful. We remain forever torn, fragmented, and conflicted amidst enduring inner contradictions and ambiguities. We inevitably have split minds all our lives. It's our nature. We're never totally unified, saved, and healed. The best we humans can manage is an on-again, off-again, and ever unstable reconciliation as we pause and consult with our paradoxically wise and centered part-selves. In so doing, we can accept and supervise the best of our dualistic and foolish part-selves. Supervise the rest of our dualistic and foolish part-selves. Conflicts between our various inner parts can paralyze us with doubt, indecision, ambivalence, and fear as we waver between choices. It's like having a clumsy, argumentative, and unmanageable inner congress which stops and tediously debates the pros and cons of each and every step and issue, a congress which often outvotes the humble, quiet, and paradoxically wise part-self. We must eventually choose to relinquish the naive and childish illusions of certainty, purity, and single-mindedness, forgive ourselves for continuing to be so terribly and completely hoodwinked by the cosmic con game, and finally arrive at some small degree of acceptance, peace, humor, and reconciliation about our inescapably split up, conflicted, argumentative, and foolish minds. We must pause and proceed in a humble and careful way, weighing the options of each issue and remaining intricately balanced between and aware of our persistent inner and contradictory preferences, attitudes, agendas, and viewpoints. Life is served up only in packages of enigmas or dilemmas, not in those tidy, easy, halcyon, and 100% certainties that we imagine. Life's most important, challenging, intriguing, and illuminating choices are, therefore, difficult, compromised, and 52-48 close calls indeed. Often we must fully commit to what we realize are imperfect, difficult, serviceable, and highly flawed compromises whose advantages sometimes come with terrible casualties. We must embrace the multifaceted and paradoxical art of doubt-laden full commitment. This is the messy and compromised nature of being human. Seen in this light, reasonable degrees of doubt, hesitation, ambivalence, and compromise can be regarded as mature and realistic virtues rather than vices. We can come to value that pregnant pause wherein we weigh, balance, and coordinate our internal differences and disagreements. It's more realistic to settle for the mere, murky, compromised, and paradoxical reality that we can have rather than to childishly stamp our feet and demand the impossibly perfect clarity of our favorite dualistic, cost-free, and naive illusions. To illustrate this impurity principle, even the oxygen, which is so essential for life, comprises only 20% of the air that we breathe. We're not designed to breathe pure oxygen. Rather, we're designed to extract that precious 20% from the messy amalgamation. Isn't it beautiful and fitting that all these unnoticed breaths that we take each moment reflect the principle of compromise, which is so essential for ultimate and paradoxical enlightenment? Keeping this in mind, our childish and one-sided confidence in our artificially split up, purified, and immature view of reality can thus transform into a much more confidently doubtful, unperplexed, uncertain, and humble grasp of the true and nuanced fullness of impure, compromised, and paradoxical reality. This integrated, coordinated, and confusing confluence becomes our most profoundly clarified enlightenment, our most paradoxical confusion. In the end, we must accept the uncivilized, dualistic, and unconscious parts. Otherwise, we remain as mere and empty half-selves, so to speak, who can't accept and utilize the enriching depth and diversity of our own multifaceted, messy, and enriching fullness. This integration is a dynamic compromise. Perhaps even the most ambitious and profound among us will be able to attain a workable synchrony and unity with our collective, paradoxically wise part-selves for only 10 or 20% of the time. Then we can embrace, abide, and resolve the schism of our split-upness. In the center of paradox, the conscious and unconscious dance in balance and harmony with each other. This awakening is a truly amazing, ever-fallible, ever-renewing, and yet everyday transformation, metamorphosis, expansion, or rebirth, so to speak. It makes us much more fully and unfathomably human and infinite within life's ever-present limits, or finiteness. Great discipline is a prerequisite for total freedom. Again, enlightenment is free, but it costs us everything and it yields so much more. After all, that's what we're after. The end result of a hard-earned, compromised, and optimally awakening life is not merely what we had in mind. We are not going to become perfectly serene and imperturbable demigods when we grow up. Paradoxical wisdom is more about doggedly applying a simple, useful, and fallible method during each present moment. Integrated consciousness is simply the meticulous, hit-and-miss, and moment-by-moment practice of kindness, centeredness, gentleness, and the middle way. When we manage to embrace our small percentage of light-hearted enlightenment, we simply learn to think, pause, balance, and consult with our paradoxically wise part-self so that we then can speak and act in paradoxes as much as possible. In the end, we need all our aspects. Remember, the paradoxically wise part-self resides in, abides, and embraces all regions of our minds. For example, the dark side contains so much of our vital passion, emotion, energy, drive, aggression, sexuality, creativity, and spontaneity. Even its violence can be needed at times. The conscious, trainable, and problem-solving ego is needed all our lives to coordinate and carry out increasingly skillful elements of higher and abstract reason within the ever-changing complexities of reality and society. In harmony with nature, paradoxical wisdom is not about getting rid of any of our aspects. Nothing about the self goes away. Like it or not, we must enthusiastically embrace the messy totality of our forever fragmented, conflicted, afflicted, foolish, and split-up brains. Individual life is a team sport, so to speak. It's a combatively harmonious serenity. Sometimes it's a desperate serenity. And finally, a quote from Marcus Aurelius: "The art of living is more like wrestling than like dancing." We'll stop there.